And what's going on, everybody? From here from Therealdealplays, and welcome back to another episode of TRDplays Reviews SAO Alicization. Today we're covering episodes 7 and 8. Why both of these were not just one episode? Because I decided to myself after watching episode 7 that since it's leading into episode 8, might as well just go ahead and put the two into one. You feel me? Not like the same way I did 2 through 5, because I just didn't think about it at the time. But we ain't gonna talk about that. Anyways, episodes 7 and 8 of SAO Alicization. First of all, slightly confused about what happened in episode 8 and how I'm supposed to take it, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But first thing I do want to point out is the fact that in episode 7, there's, how do I put this? I'm going to say it the same way I said for like episode, what was it, 6, I think, of Alicization, where I was like, there's stuff there, like there's important stuff to take away from this, but I don't feel like the whole episode you need to watch to understand what's going to happen, right? I feel like the same thing was for episode 7, but don't get it misunderstood, it's still a pretty decent episode nonetheless. So, episode 7, we're back following Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh! And when we get back, we find out that it's been about 2 years' time since the last time we've seen them. Now, some of you might be like, but it's only been a few weeks' time with Asa in the game. Try to remember that in this world that Kirito is in, time tends to flow way faster than in the real world. Anyways, it's been about 2 years since the last time we've seen the duo. Within the first year, these guys are pretty much just working on a farm, trying to get some money up, just pretty much finding a place to stay throughout that year. But come this, and if I remember correctly, throughout that first year, while they were working on the farm, they also entered a tournament. They were also preparing and entering a tournament for swordsmanship, and they both won the tournament, which gave them rights to enter this Swordcraft Academy, as that's the name of it. They enter Swordcraft Academy, and we get introduced to Lina. I think her name's Lina. I can't really remember off the top of my dome because I haven't seen episode 7 in like a hot minute. But yeah, we get introduced to Lina, who is the teacher for Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh! In the Swordcraft Academy. Anyways, the academy, they go there, they're pretty much just, training to become better swordsmen, so that way when they make it over to the Dark Territory, they're more equipped to deal with any scenario that they can come across where they're going to have to use their sword, right? I mean, considering Yu-Gi-Oh! was still pretty much a novice with a sword the last time we seen him, this pretty much just works out in our favor. So anyways, this episode is just really building up to episode 8, like I stated earlier. But episode 7 pretty much is just like Lina is pretty much telling Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh! How she's preparing for her graduation match, which is supposed to be going against the first seed. But the way they're setting it up is like, she's the second, she's rank 2 and he's rank 1 when it comes to, the academy of the graduating year, right? So she's nervous about fighting him, and let me just say, Lina has one of the most interesting fighting styles I've ever seen. Like, instead of just using a sword, right, she also uses a whip to throw off her opponent, which I feel like is pretty fucking interesting. So yeah, so Lina is preparing for a graduation match. Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh! Are pretty much just cheering her on. Now, the biggest part that comes out of this is like, if I remember, I think it's the next day. The way the academy works is that, you train all this time, and then you have one rest day. And on this rest day, you're not allowed to train, right? Which I found is stupid, which I feel like it should be more like, okay, you can just, you can train all through the week if you want to. You can take, here's a rest day if you want to take rest, but if you want to keep training, go ahead. If you want to train on your own or just practice the skills you were taught, be my guest. But whatever, I don't run this damn school. Anyway, it's rest day, and Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh! Go up to this blacksmith shop because Kirito went to go get a custom order made, right? And if I remember bits and pieces of it, because I'm trying to get like bits and pieces of knowledge together from this, Kirito's new sword that's being forged was made out of like branches from the big ass tree that Yu-Gi-Oh! Was chopping at before, like back then in like episode like 2 and 3 and whatnot, right? I think it was 2. Yeah, it's 2 and 3. So yeah, it's made from this, basically the sword has pieces of this tree in it. So already you're like, this is going to be a strong ass sword, because they were chopping at this tree for 500 years, could barely make a dent in it. But then they use high powered sword skills to like slash through this tree. Yeah, that's way better, right? No, yeah, it wasn't like, just high level sword skills, but a legendary sword on top of that to cut through this tree to actually make some sort of damage into it. So, anyways, with that being said, Kirito and Yujiro go to this blacksmith to go get Kirito's sword, and the blacksmith, he's complaining. He's just like, dude, this sword is freaking heavy. Like, I've never had to craft a sword this heavy. So Kirito is just like, yeah, this is gonna like destroy my wallet. I don't think I'm gonna have enough to pay for it. Yujiro's like, bruh, it's all good. If you can't pay for it all, I'm gonna throw in some funds to help you get it. The blacksmith, cool guy. He's like, okay, since you want this heavy ass sword, simple, pick it up and wield it. And if you do that, you can have it for free. Kirito does. He's got this new sword, which I must say has one slick ass design, and it looks pretty cool too. It's kind of got that feel of the Elucidator from the first season, but that's just me. I don't know if anybody else felt like that. Anyways, Kirito takes the sword and he goes off and he goes to do a few practice swings with it. When in the background he's being spied on by the first seat of his school. And while using the sword skill, he's coming to realize that he's coming to better understand like how swords work in this universe. Whereas like, some swords, because they're so, lower tier, you can't really use no high level sword skills. For example, like the sword, like when he was fighting the goblins and the Goblin King and whatnot, he was able to use things like Sonic Leap and Slant, things like that. He was able to use skills like that because they're like low tier skills. You know what I'm saying? Like they're low tier skills with a low tier weapon. They're like one hit combos. But like using something like maybe horizontal square or something like that. By the way, if you don't know what I'm talking about, these are all sword skills within Sword Art Online. I've been playing a lot, like a lot of freaking like Hollow Fragment and whatnot. So yeah, if you don't know what I'm talking about, there you go. But anyways, yeah, like using things like horizontal square, things like that, like multi-hitting combos on like low tier weapons would probably be impossible because of the idea of it's like, yeah, no, it's not really built for that, right? It's not built with the right materials to be able to handle that type of force, right? Whereas this new sword, he can pull off things like, horizontal square and whatnot, and he's like, I can perform 4-hit combo sword skills, possibly even 5-hit combo sword skills. But while he's training, he ends up slipping and tripping, and it throws some mud behind him, which ends up hitting the first seat's uniform. The first seat then comes out to confront Kirito, pretty much saying, hey, this is rest day, you're not supposed to be training. Kirito apologizes. The guy's like, it's cool or whatever, I'll look by it. I'll bypass it, I won't pay no mind. Which, at first you're like, oh, okay, cool. The guy's not, the guy's not an asshole. But then he's like, now, however, I said I'd look past you training on rest day. The stain on my shirt that you put there, however, that's a different story. Which then leads into them both agreeing into a duel with one another. And a duel towards one another. Which is interesting because it's a stain on a shirt and like, let's fight. You feel me? Like, it's interesting that he took it to that extreme, right? So anyways, Kirito and the first seat, I forgot this guy's name. I think it was like Leviathan or something like that. I could be personally wrong with his name, but I'm just going to continue calling him the first seat. So yeah. So Kirito and the first seat go to this arena where the rules pretty much, they're going, instead of going like, they're battling until you're put into a position where you're going to have to yield. Instead, it's like, no, we're playing contact, like first person to make contact with the other person wins, right, with the sword. And they're not using wooden swords, they're using their actual swords. So it's interesting because, Line starts telling him that like, this is a, like you have to be careful when you battle him because skill that holds the power throughout his generations. Like I said, I don't really remember much of that point, but it's like he has some type of skill which could basically increase his striking power, like give him like way more power. And that's pretty much the end of episode 7. Episode 8, however, opens back up with this duel getting ready to start. Now, as the duel gets ready to start, Kirito, he's trying to plan out how he's going to do this, how he's going to go in there. Duel starts, this guy starts preparing up a sword skill, which Kirito instantly calls out as being the two-handed skill Avalanche. So he's already preparing for it, but then he can see like this guy using his skills to give his ability more striking power, meaning he can't just simply stop this skill. And he even says, if it's going to be near impossible to try and dodge it, I'm going to have to try to like counter it, right? So as the guy is using his sword skill, Kirito's like, all right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use horizontal square, and I'm going to tag his blade 3 times as he tries to use this skill to try to reduce the amount of force he's putting behind it. That way, on the 3rd strike, I can hold it back, open him up, and I would still have my 4th hit on me. So they go ahead and do it, and they start clashing, and Kirito realizes that this guy has so much like strength behind his sword that it's almost ridiculous, and like he can barely hold back, right? Even after hitting his blade 3 times to stop the force, it still feels like too much. And in this moment, Kirito is pretty much like, he's not gonna lose. He's fighting for too much. He's fighting to see his friends, to continue his journey. He's fighting for just too much. And in this moment, you get like flashbacks, not even flashbacks, but like visuals of like Asuna, Sugu, Silica, Lisbeth, Agio, Klein, Sinon, like all these characters and all their memories. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like the memories of these characters just kind of like come out and infuse themselves into his sword, making his sword longer and allowing him to push back against the first seat's attack. And then the duel just comes to a draw, right? Like it's just a draw, and they're like, okay, stop it right here. This is where this ends. After that, Kirito, Line, and Yujiro, they're all talking, and Line is like, you should be grateful. And then in the draw, like Kirito's like, yeah, I am, but I kind of wanted to see the battle through. I wanted to see where that was going to go, right? So anyways, Line's leaving because her graduation match is like, what was it, like a day or 2 after that event? And Kirito ends up going back to his dorm, but he can't sleep because he's thinking about what happened in the arena. He ends up going outside to meet 2 people who are underneath the first seat, and these guys just start mocking Kirito. Now these guys weren't a fan of Kirito and Yujiro to begin with. They weren't. They made that very clear in episode 7. Episode 8 comes around, now they're becoming a problem. So they meet up with Kirito, and they're doing that little thing that villains do or bad people do, where it's like, oh yeah, well I just came here to congratulate you on your match, and da-da-da-da. Like they're being snobs with it though. So Kirito instantly sees through their BS, and it's like, I mean, what y'all want to do? We can fight right now if that's what y'all want. It won't matter to me, right? And they're like, oh no, we didn't want to fight. We just wanted to give you a present for your little duel and surviving. The guy taps Kirito's pocket and drops something in it. Him and his friend keep walking off. Kirito goes in his pocket, finds out it's a rose from the garden. It's a rose from the little bed of flowers that he was planting. Once again, also this is something I didn't bring up in episode 7. He was planting a bed of flowers, but yeah, it was supposed to be for Line because they were her favorite type of flowers. Anyways, Kirito, seeing that this flower is crushed, like crushed up, like someone just took the head of the flower and just ripped it off and smushed it, decides, okay, I need to go check on him. Goes to check on him, all the flowers are dead. These guys then smushed all of his flowers, and supposedly, not only were these Line's favorite flowers, but also they were very difficult to bloom, in that area, right? In that soil. So Kirito was legit giving it his all to try to bloom these flowers. And at one point, he's breaking down, he's crying because he's put so much time and effort into these flowers just for them to just be destroyed, like to just die like that. Until a random voice starts calling to him and is like, you can bring them back, right? Like this random voice is just like, you can bring them back. You have the power to bring them back. You just have to imagine it. You just have to see yourself doing it. Which then a weird point happens at that. Okay, so when that happened, when she's telling him this, in my head, this brings out the idea that, okay, so what you're telling me is the way skills and whatnot in this world work is like, if I can envision myself doing it, I can do it. I could be wrong on that. Let me know what you guys think. Because on one hand, I'm like, that somewhat makes sense. Because it somewhat makes sense because it will, how do I put this? It makes sense because I feel like that's something that would have to happen in something like not just this universe, but even back as, something as far back as Aincrad, and outline and whatnot, I feel like that would make sense. Like if you wanted to like use like a sword skill or a spell, you had to envision what sword skill or spell you were doing, and you had to follow through the motion. You see what I'm saying? I feel like so on one hand I understand it, but I don't at the same time. So clarification if anybody has it. So yeah, so Kirito is pretty much instructed to like try to take some of the life force from the other plants in the garden instead of just taking from like one, because then you'll just be killing them and you'll be an asshole. But he's just like, he's instructed to just take life from all of the flowers, like just take a little bit of life from all of the flowers and act as a conduit to move the life energy through him and into the flowers that was destroyed. He ends up doing it, thus bringing his flowers back to life. And then we cut over to the next day where Line is having her graduation match, where she ends up beating the first seed and graduating, thus making Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh, you know, like the new teachers for like their subclass, right? So yeah, basically at this point it's pretty much just showing us like, okay, this is what Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh are getting into at this point after the events of both Kirito's match with the first seed and Line's graduation match with the first seed. And I can kind of see where, I kind of got an idea of where this is going afterwards. The idea of like, okay, so now that they're, you know, teachers, they're looking after their students. I feel like at some point they're teaching their students. I can see like an episode where like Kirito and Yuji are teaching the students. One of the students decide that they want to show like they're, like maybe the student looks like they're the weakest of the pack or made fun of for being like not really good in like sword skills, so they decide they want to take on some strong monster or something like that to go prove that they're not that weak, that they can keep up with the rest of the group, which ends with Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh having to battle some creatures in order to save the student. I mean, that's just where I see it going from here. Then again, every prediction I pretty much made about this series so fucking far has been wrong, and I've made like 2 of them. So lucky number 3, maybe. But yeah, that's going to do it for my review for SAO Alicization episodes 7 and 8. What did you guys think of episodes 7 and 8? Personally, like I said, 7 was just like episode 6, where it's like 10 minutes, you get your 10 minutes of what you need. You know, you get your little 10 minutes of information, and then everything else is just like, it's there. While 8 was pretty much like the build up to that, right? That's just how I feel about it. So, like I said, what do you guys think about it? Do you guys agree with what I say about episode 7 just being a catalyst to episode 8, or do you guys think that episode 7 was good all the way through? Let me know in the comment section down below. What do you think is going to happen later on? And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video. This is TRDplays signing out. Dose to Venia.